Alright, first reading of the year, I guess. And I will be reading fewer, basically the depopulation of the world, which is basically happening now, like into the third world, nations worldwide. Anyways, this is my response to the nonsense of the Great Replacement, Anyways, here goes. Chapter 1, the story of this book. This book is about demography, that is, the study of populations, that is, human beings, that is, people. For at least 650 years since the time of the Black Plague, the total number of people on Earth has headed in only one direction, up. But soon, probably within a few decades, global population will level off and then likely fall for a protracted period of time. The number of people on Earth will be headed down, quote, depopulating. Why? Birth rates and fertility rates ultimately yield total population levels, and never have births and fertility rates fallen so, and never have birth and fertility rates fallen so far that fast, so low for so long, so in so many places, so surprisingly. Depopulation is already proceeding in many of the modern developed nations. Europe is now losing about 700,000 people each year, a figure that will grow to about 300 million people a year. A figure that will grow to about 3 million a year or more by mid-century. Russia alone is losing close to 1 million people a year. Within the next few years, Japan will begin losing population. The steep trend toward fewer children per woman in the modern nations has been near universal. Only the United States is an exception, one which will be discussed in many places in this book. These trends have an intense personal relevance for many Americans, which unfortunately we've been seeing and I've just been reading about. But what's going on is not restricted to the well-to-do modern nations. The poorer, less developed countries, LCDs, still have higher birth and fertility rates than the rich countries, but rates in the LCDs are typically falling at more rapid rate than ever experienced in rich countries. As recently as 1970, the typical woman in an low developed country nation bore 6.0 children per woman. Today, in the midst of the fertility freefall, the rate is about 2.8 or 2.7 children per woman, and rapidly continuing downward. Such patterns have been observed in India, Indonesia, Brazil, Egypt, Iran, and critically Mexico, and only to begin a long list. This is not idle speculation. There are not simple straight-line projections, as we shall see. Much of it is already pretty well baked into the cake of the future, baked into the new demography. Sorry, being dramatic. Why the continuing decline? One example, billions of people still live in rural poverty. They are migrating to cities where fertility and family size are invariably lower than in rural areas. The results are already inscribed in U.S. Official United Nations projections. Moreover, I believe the UN is most likely understanding the actual speed of the current fertility decline. The new demography is here. It relates to most everything involved in human activity, and its consequences can only intensify. What is happening will affect parents, grandparents, and children everywhere. It will affect every business in every country. After all, the numbers of customers, or lack thereof, is the essence of commerce and economics, of buying and selling. Population is at the center of our environmental situation. This includes the air we breathe, the water we drink, and perhaps the level at which we set the thermostat. It relates to traffic jams, it relates to what is often called suburban sprawl, or the absence of it. Population holds a fine mirror to many human values and how they change. Even before 9/11, and certainly since then, the new demography has had little impact on geopolitics, the high-stakes games that nations play. The United States is now called, quote, the sole superpower. It also has a unique demographic signature. America will grow while other modern nations will shrink. What will America be then? The only omnipower? Or the muscle-bound polyglot? A bickering and overextended giant player on the global scene, harming itself and others? After 9/11, as I worked on this book, I watched televisions, read the newspaper, and magazines, went to seminars, interviewed experts. Something was missing. President Bush said we have to save our civilization. If you are engaged in speculating about how to save civilization, demography is an important dimension, indeed a critical one. But I had the feeling that most commentators don't know demography from pornography. Even some expert demographers have no idea how rapidly things have changed. The new demography may well intensify the cry that America is going it alone, not because we want to, but rather because we have to. Our principal allies, the people in Europe and Japan, are bearing almost unbearably few children. How will it all turn out? The best way to be with America in the lead. The best way to be with America in the lead. Ultimately, America's demographic wave may crash on the sharp rocks of immigration and separatism, other aspects of the current demographic situation. And as America goes, so goes the world. For the record, early on, I think it will work out pretty well. The starkest aspect of new global demographic era I write about will probably be of limited duration, most likely playing themselves out in the course of the century. Many readers will likely see much of the process in their lifetime. I kind of liked how, even in this book, he points out that America's pretty separatist and we might not want like immigration. He even points this out in the Birth Earth. So, as much as I disagree with how he sort of says the data flatly, like, yes, the death of the birth rate of non-white people will lose all our values. Like, he says that, but that's why I jumped into this knowing, and in the Birth Earth back like last year, that it would be pretty racist, and I hope you guys jumped into the information safely and not with the Great Replacement conspiracy, because I feel like he dispels that myth anyways. So, alright. Demography is a curious field of study. Everyone knows that population is important, but if I asked you to name a famous demographer, you'd probably say, quote, I don't know, or, quote, Malthus. And what about Malthus? 200 years ago, he wrote his famous essay explaining that population growth would outpace food supply, causing famine and tragedy. He was wrong, and acknowledged it. It is often said that demography is destiny. That's an overstatement, but it's nonetheless crucial. If we are aware of the accelerating trends, we may want to try to shape our demography and consequentially help shape our destiny. As a general matter, not many people are aware of what's going on, including the high and mighty in the policy community. The advent of new demography portends a different world. Joseph Kami, director of the UN Population Division, UNPD, puts it this way. There was the Industrial Revolution, there was the Information Age, now there is the Demographic Revolution. At root, the situation is fairly simple. The number of people on Earth will grow by an ever